Hey guys, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens. We are diving into episode 2 of The Secret History of American Intelligence, the Shadow Wars, the era of covert operations from 1953 all the way to 1973. And without further ado, let's get into it. The Cold War was not fought only through diplomacy, the military alliances, or the nuclear deterrence. Beneath the headlines, another conflict unfolded in secrecy. A global struggle driven by espionage and covert action, propaganda, and political influence. As the tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union had intensified, American leaders had increasingly concluded that traditional diplomacy alone could not contain communist expansion. From this strategic environment that emerged was a new role for the Central Intelligence Agency, transforming it from an intelligence organization into an increasingly important instrument of U.S. foreign policy. Unlike conventional warfare, the covert operations were designed to influence events without direct military confrontation or the public acknowledgement, and intelligence officers had relied on psychological warfare, clandestine funding, propaganda campaigns, and support for the allied political groups, and parliamentary operations, which also shaped political outcomes abroad. Now, these activities were intended to provide a strategic advantages while preserving the plausible deniability for the United States. And during the 1950s through the 60s, this approach became a defining feature of the Cold War strategy. The origins of this doctrine lay in the rapidly changing international order. After the Second World War, the Soviet Union consolidated control over much of Eastern Europe. The Communist forces established the People's Republic of China in 1949, and the Korean War demonstrated how regional conflicts could become flashpoints in the broader Cold War. American policymakers increasingly viewed these developments through the lens of a containment, believing the Soviets' influence had to be resisted before it had expanded further. And within this framework, the covert action became a central national security tool. One of the first major tests of this strategy had occurred in Iran during 1953. The Prime Minister, Mohammad Mosaddegh, and nationalized the Anglo-Iranian oil company, creating a major dispute with Britain while also raising concerns among the Americans about political instability during the Cold War. And a joint operation between the CIA and Britain's secret intelligence services known as Operation Ajax, covert effort had supported the restoration of the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, authority. Declassified records confirm that the CIA's role in the operation, while historians had continued to debate both its immediate successes and its long-term impact on the relations between Iran and the United States. The following year, the CIA carried out another major covert operation in Guatemala. President Jacobo Arbenz introduced land reforms that affected powerful economic interests, while American officials feared increasing communist influence within his government. Through Operation PBSUCCESS, PBSUCCESS, the CIA combined psychological operations and political pressure and had supported for the opposition forces to weaken Arben's position. His resignation achieved Washington's immediate objective, but the historians continue to examine how that particular operation had contributed to the decades of the political instability and the civil conflict in Guatemala. As the Cold War competition had expanded across Asia and Africa and Latin America, The intelligence operations became increasingly global. Newly independent nations often found themselves caught between competing superpowers, while each was seeking influence through the political, economic, and military support. Excuse me. Southeast Asia had emerged as one of the Cold War's most significant battlegrounds, where the CIA had expanded their intelligence collection, supported the Allied governments, and had developed covert partnerships intended to limit the communist influence. Now, these activities would become deeply intertwined with America's growing involvement in Vietnam. Technology also had transformed the intelligence during this period. The development of the U-2 reconnaissance aircraft followed the United States to photograph Soviet military installations from extreme altitudes, providing unprecedented information about the missile sites, airfields, and strategic capabilities. These flights significantly improved American intelligence assessments, but it also did carry enormous diplomatic risk as well. In 1960, the U-2 aircraft piloted by Francis Gary Powers had been shot over the Soviet Union, which the incident exposed the existence of the program and heightened the Cold War tensions between Washington and Moscow. Only a year later, Cuba became the center of another defining moment in intelligence history. Following Fidel's resolution and his government's growing relationship with the Soviet Union, the CIA supported the Bay of Pigs invasion in April of 1961. The plan had depended on Cuban exiles landing on the island and triggering a larger uprising against Castro's government. Now, instead, the invasion failed to achieve the objectives in strengthening Castro politically and becoming one of the most significant setbacks in the agency's early history. But the official reviews later identified the shortcomings in the planning, intelligence assessments, and assumptions regarding popular support. After the Bay of Pigs, the United States had continued the covert efforts against Cuba through Operation Mongoose. Now, this program included sabotage, intelligence collection, propaganda, and other activities that were intended to pressure Castro's government. The declassified records also show that various proposals concerning Castro's removal were discussed during this period, and although the historians continue to examine the scope of the implementation of those plans, the persistence of these operations had reflected strategic importance in Americans placed on Cuba throughout the Cold War period, of course. These stakes had reached their highest point during the Cuban Missile Crisis. In October of 1962, the U-2 reconnaissance flight confirmed the presence of Soviet nuclear missiles on Cuban soil, bringing the world closer to a nuclear war than at any previous time. The intelligence gathered through aerial surveillance had provided President John F. Kennedy and his advisors with critical information during the 13 days of intense negotiations. Now, as the crisis kept going, it ultimately ended through diplomacy, with the Soviet Union, of course, agreeing to remove its missiles from Cuba, while the United States privately agreed to remove Jupiter missiles from Turkey, all illustrating both the value and the limitations of intelligence during moments of extreme international danger. While Cuba dominated public's attention, the CIA was also conducting one of its largest covert operations in neighboring Southeast Asia. In Laos, the agency worked with local allies in what later became known as the Secret War, which was providing training, logistical support, intelligence, and coordination against communist forces. Much of this conflict had remained hidden from the public's view for years, not only because of its classified nature, But as the American involvement in Vietnam expanded, the intelligence operations became increasingly integrated with the conventional military strategy, blurring the lines between covert action and open warfare. By the early 1970s, the Cold War competition had shifted towards South America. Whilst in Chile, the election of the president Salvador Allende prompted the significant concern among American policymakers about the country's political direction during a period of intense ideological rivalry. Now, I may have butchered the president's name. Let me give it to you one more time. Where is it? Salvador Allende. 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 I digress. Between 1953 and 1973, the CIA also involved in one of the world's most influential intelligence organizations. And its covert operations had affected the political developments across multiple continents, and it also became an integral component of the American Cold War strategy. The supporters had argued these operations had helped contain the Soviets' influence without requiring direct military confrontation, while critics questioned their legality, effectiveness, and the long-term consequences of democratic governance and international stability. Now, this historical record demonstrated both the strategic importance of intelligence during the Cold War and the enduring debates surrounding the use of secret powers in a constitutional democracy. By mid-1970s, by the 70s, the era of nearly unquestionable secrecy was coming to an end. Investigative journalists, whistleblowers, declassified documents, and congressional inquiries became revealing intelligence activities that had remained hidden for decades. And the question confronting the American public were no longer limited to whether covert operations had advanced national security, but rather the adequate oversight had existed to ensure that secret government power remained consistent with the nation's constitutional principles. Those investigations could reshape the intelligence community and redefine the relationship between secrecy, accountability, as well as democracy. In Part 3, we leave the foreign battlefields of the Cold War and enter the halls of Congress, where the unprecedented investigations, including the Church Committee, expand declassified intelligence programs, domestic surveillance, assassination plots, and the constitutional limits of secret government power. I want to thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Unfiltered Political Lens. We'll see you in Part 3. Peace. Thank you.